Hello and welcome to another edition of the Guitar Bucket List here on Jim's Well Done Guitars. I'm Jim Fusco, and right here is my Rickenbacker 360 12C 63 electric 12-string guitar. And I don't know about you, but it doesn't really get a whole heck of a lot better than this for me. When you look at this guitar and the look of it, the colors, the way that it's finished, the multi-piece neck, and obviously the old school charm and sound that I fell in love with as a kid and never fell out of love with. It's just really amazing. Now, this is never going to be my, everyday guitar. It's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to play. There are 12 strings all crammed in there. And one of the things that this checks off, we'll get to it right away, one of the things this checks off the bucket list is that it's a reissue guitar. I never really had one of those before, and there are some great points about it, and there are some trade-offs. So first, the great points. It looks amazing, okay? So this one right here has these points that it comes to. The ones after the 63 model, they start to round off the points. And in fact, when, this is the model that George Harrison played, that he got when he was in the Beatles, and then he subsequently kind of brought it out of retirement for the Cloud 9 album when I was little, like 3 years old when that came out, and that thing is, like, in my head is what music should sound like. A lot of that like late 80s music that those guys, Jeff Lynne, Tom Petty, the Traveling Wilburys, all that kind of like is what music should sound like to me. And I think it obviously had a really big effect on me. And, this guitar is kind of the look of what I wanted, which is why I wanted to get this one. But Roger McGuinn is his sound of the 12 string that he saw George playing and heard George playing. He got one that was the next year, the 64 model, that had the more rounded off edges over here on the upper and lower bouts. And then he tweaked the sound. So I love his sound, the Roger McGuinn Bird sound, that really jangly, very, kind of like chorusy, ringing out type of sound. It really cuts through the mix, and it's got a bit of a bite to it. That's the sound that I really love. But this is the look that I really like. So what do you do in that case? So what I ended up doing was buying this guitar. This was probably about 10 years ago, maybe a little less, that I got this one. And I got this guitar, and I used the sound of Roger McGuinn. So I have his Jangle Box pedal. That's the Bird's 50th anniversary edition of that pedal, and it really does recreate the sound well, which we'll hear at the end of the video. So this one here, you can't really just, find these in stock very often. When they are in stock, they kind of sell out quickly. I guess Rickenbacker kind of does an artificial supply and demand type of thing where they only make so many every year, and it really does kind of contribute to the perceived scarcity of all of their models. But it's really well made. I can't say anything negative about how it's made. When I first got it, I thought there was something wrong with it because it actually has seam lines that run basically under the low E string and the high E string. There's a seam line in the wood, and it took me forever because I've never seen a guitar like that. I'm like, was this repaired before? What the heck was it? Well, it turns out it has a 3-piece top, and I never had one that had a 3-piece top before, so that was kind of interesting, especially when you look at the back, and it's a 2-piece back. Beautiful, by the way. I mean, the way that they paint it, the transition from the dark to the light, even this light peach color that's in the middle here, and the woods that they use. And obviously this neck with this crazy set of tuners here that go backwards and forwards so they can cram all 12 tuners in without making the headstock, really long like the Gibson or the Fender models. I have yet, over all that time, because I clean the strings really well, I'm sure I'll get a lot of flack for this, I have yet to change the strings. And I am not sorry about that. They are still in great shape because I don't get to play it every single day. They're looking at it now, maybe they're due, but this is not an easy guitar to string because you have to string it through the headstock, but not all the way through the headstock. And I'm just not looking forward to that. It's going to be a project. It has these interesting inlays that are not really inlays. My brother and I were talking about it. They kind of looks like an epoxy that was put in that approximates what like a pearl would look like, but they were nice looking, and they're kind of like this weird, trapezoidal figure that's in there. And obviously it's a semi-hollow design with this cool, kind of swoop inside of it here. And one of the other trade-offs is that it doesn't have the cool R on the back, on down here at the tailpiece that they have in some of the newer models. And I really like that. So this is definitely more of a historic spec. And the other trade-off of the historic spec, the one that I really kind of wish that I had, is the newer models have something called Ric-O-Sound. And what that is basically, this has 2 output jacks on it. But unfortunately, those 2 output jacks output the exact same thing. It's just the same signal sent to 2 different things. I think the idea was that at the time you would put it out to 2 different amplifiers, or one into the control board and one into an amplifier. But the Ric-O-Sound actually in some of the models actually approximates a stereo effect that I would have really loved, especially when you're dealing with that kind of ringing out, jangly type of thing. Getting that stereo effect from just recording it once is really cool, and it's part of the McGuinn 12-string sound. But my love of this design, it won out. So I get mono recordings out of this thing. Not that, you couldn't mess with it, but I try not to mess with, the historic reissue type of things. Like I put strap blocks on everything. This one doesn't get strap blocks. So anyway, so this is definitely a big entry into the guitar bucket list. It's a 12-string guitar, so it checks that off. And it's a reissue of the 1963 model, which to me is just the epitome of cool. Okay, so normally I try to give sounds from the guitar from all the different positions, but this is one of those guitars to me that's kind of a one-trick pony. You want to play mostly open chords on here. Not that bar chords sound bad. They actually sound really good. But the magic of this guitar is really in the ringing out of the notes. And so what I've got here is my Jangle Box. It's the Bird's 50th Anniversary Edition pedal. It's kind of like a chorus, but it's got like this little bit of a bite to it that you'll hear in Roger McGuinn's version of the Rickenbacker, but not necessarily in George Harrison's version of the Rickenbacker, even though this is the George Harrison model. So let me play you a little bit. You can also hear what I'm about to play in all of its full produced glory in my song New Guitar, and you can check out the music video for that. So you get the idea. The Rickenbacker 360 12C63 checked 2 items off of the guitar bucket list: reissue guitar and 12-string guitar. However, we also added an item to the list, that would be the Murphy Lab aged guitar, so the total so far is 23 out of 63 items. Make sure to visit guitarbucketlist.com for all the latest updates.